Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Amy Smith, and I'm the Senior Director of Certifications and Advocacy for the ANA. Today, I'm joined by a panel of amazing CNSs and RDs to discuss the value of accepting insurance in your practice as a nutrition professional. I often get questions from our practitioners regarding the value and benefits of accepting insurance. Accepting insurance is important for the brand equity of CNS credentials because it enhances accessibility. It makes the services more widely available, and it boosts our credibility and trust. Additionally, it provides a competitive advantage, setting CNS professionals apart from others who do not accept insurance. We have seen an increase in CNSs moving to an insurance model, but there are still some that are hesitant to take the leap. So we're hoping to gain some clarity today, and most importantly, bust some of the myths that people have heard about taking insurance. So we'll start with some brief introductions and get started on some questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Amy. Thanks for having us here. I wanted to kick us off. I'm Melinda Staling by introducing Amy Plano. Amy has been such a special part of our lives since we started working with her. She has been an awesome champion for CNSs and our work, and it's just so exciting to have her here today to share her knowledge, passion, and expertise on insurance. Amy Plano, the reimbursement dietitian, RDMS, CDE, CDN, is a successful private practice dietitian, passionate about helping dietitians create profitable nutrition private practices using an insurance-based model. Together with her husband, Mark Plano, she runs the Plano program, a health and wellness-based center in Orange, Connecticut. Through her coaching programs, online resources, and seminars, she teaches dietitians and CNSs how to use health insurance to make money in their nutrition practices. Amy, I was hoping that's your professional bio, but I was hoping you could kick us off and just share a little bit more about your timeline, maybe in your journey from like baby Amy dietitian to group practice owner to coach.
Oh my God. Yes. Yeah. So I had a very traditional, which is interesting, right? So I'm older, so I had a very traditional tract, clinically. So I did my internship at Yale New Haven Hospital. I worked outpatient in the diabetes clinic. And then while I was working in the outpatient clinic, I was starting my private practice. So I started my practice in 2007. And then I went full-time in 2014. One of the things that my husband used to say to me, and it never really dawned on me that it was really a thing, was why aren't more dietitians and CNSs doing this? And, the main thing was this learning gap. But as you guys know, as business owners now, it's hard to create something when you're in the business. And so I had to pull myself out of the business in order to create these programs for you guys. So I did all of the things in private practice. So I was the biller, the scheduler, I was the accountant, the bookkeeper, the financial planner, all of the things that you guys do. And I think that was an important journey for me personally, because I am a different type of coach. I really believe it's important to learn these things on your own. And then as you get bigger and you grow, you can outsource them. So in 2019, I started the reimbursement dietitian, teaching dietitians and CNSs how to grow their practice using insurance. And so, I like to say that I am an owner operator because I am very connected. I still see patients, I still do billing, I still do all of the things. But with that being said, the best part of my day, the best part of my week is really working with you guys. And it's really funny for me to say that because historically speaking, I did not love dietitians. And I know you guys are CNSs, which actually is very different and similar at the same time. But for me, to go into a brand in a business that works with a very confrontational population as my students was a really big thing for me. And so I have to premise that by saying, the quality of this squad, the quality of this team, because I think we're all working towards something bigger than all of us, has just really changed the game in terms of how I operate. So it is an honor to serve you guys, and you guys make this worthwhile for me. And I have to make sure that that's very clear because I was laughing when I was looking at the description. It seems like it's all about me, but this is all about you. And this is all like, you guys are incredible and I am just here for the journey. So thank you for the introduction. But I am just so excited to support you guys. I couldn't pick a better team to work with. Yeah.
Thanks, Amy. We're so happy you're here.
Do you all want to introduce yourselves as well?
Okay. Is that me? Am I the first one?
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Robin Gatter. I'm CNS. I live in West Palm Beach, Florida. I practice in Florida with my own private practice in several other states. I'm licensed in and practice virtually. I focus on eating disorders, gastrointestinal disease, thyroid, autoimmune. Like many people, I graduated from the University of Bridgeport and did my internship at Clinicians Incubator. And that's how I got to this point and met all of these lovely people. And Carrie?
Hello, my name is Carrie St. Pierre, and I am based in the New York City metro area. And like Robin, I graduated from UB and completed my supervision hours at the Clinicians Incubator. And currently I run a virtual and in-person practice here in Lower Fairfield County, Connecticut. I'm licensed in a bunch of states. And I focus primarily on survivorship and risk reduction, as well as cardiometabolic disease. And I am so honored to be on this panel and where we can showcase what we've all learned from the talented and amazing Amy Plano, who has really helped us build our practices into a place where we have so much stability at this point. As we journey through today's webinar, we will learn more about, but I'm going to pass it over to Melinda for her introduction.
Thanks, Carrie. I'm Melinda Staling. I went to University of Western States and like Robin and Carrie also did my supervision at Clinicians Incubator. I work in eating disorders, sort of in the intersection of chronic health conditions and eating disorders. I see lots of clients with PCOS, women in menopause. I work in a neurodiversity and gender affirming lens, and I've just learned so much about insurance in the last year or so. I never really thought I would be here today, just like 1 year after sort of starting Amy's program. So we are ready to get going with some questions.
Thank you so much. I'm so honored to be surrounded with such beautiful women. Thank you. So let's just jump in with the $1 million question. Why should I take insurance as a CNS?
That is the $1 million question. I think the audience is probably people who have been, it's a whole range, right? There's probably students tuning in. There's probably people who have been doing this for 10 or 15 years. So this is definitely a question that applies to all of us, whether you're starting out or whether you've been doing this for a while and thinking about pivoting into insurance. So I can say that, you know, there's definitely marketing a cash practice is its own sort of set of stuff. And running an insurance-based business is it's also its own set of stuff. For me, for what I do, as I mentioned, I work in risk reduction and survivorship. And so that cohort of people in the oncology space, they come out of treatment, you know, in some sort of economic distress. You know, there's that term, the financial toxicity of chemotherapy. And so once I started working, when I was still in a cash pay model, and I was seeing some people in for risk reduction and survivorship, it was a theme that kind of kept coming up. Like when I would reach out to their physicians, their oncologists, their APRNs, like, we like you a lot, but we need our patients to be able to see people who accept insurance. And so, you know, that kind of in 2022, I started having those conversations. So I had been noodling around the idea of moving to accepting insurance for about a year and a half or so before it finally was like, you know what, I am going to do it. And I will say that as soon as I did that, I was able to really open so many more doors up very, very swiftly, like very swiftly. And I think as we all bounce around here, we'll talk about like how quickly things happened for us. And I will say certainly within that space of people in the oncology world, you know, they were like very ready to use their benefits. They were very comfortable with the idea of talking to their carriers through their treatments, through the course of their treatments and coverage. So they were very versed in the language that accompanies in insurance.
Great. So we know that licensure and credentialing are kind of the first steps, but how do you go about the process after that? After you become a CNS, then what do you do?
I'll jump in. So like a bunch of us, I discovered Amy Plano through social media.
Which is hilarious.
Yeah, watching every story in reel about all things insurance. And I noticed in some of them, she had talked about, you know, doing it yourself versus hiring somebody to get you credentialed, right? And at the time, I know there's a few people now that are slightly better, but there weren't any great people getting people credentialed. And so the process didn't seem very efficient or that they would actually get you the outcome that you wanted. So as I joined Amy's program, I think I had one application in process when I joined Amy's program. And by luck, it went through the way it should. And the average timeline can be, you know, they say 30 to 90 days. Really, it's closer to 90. Some can be 120. And so it's just a waiting game once you get all of your paperwork in. But I found as I kept doing them, because I'm in with all the major insurance plans, it really wasn't as hard as I think I thought it was going to be in my mind. I thought it was going to be all these things, all these documents and everything I was going to have to get in order and, you know, paragraphs and, you know, like a college application almost. And it really isn't. And, you know, once with most of them, not all, if you have the CAQH filled out correctly, that's kind of like the universal application for college, you know, like they all check that one. And there may be some specific little other smaller applications. So once I knew that and was supported by Amy about like, you know, just go for it. And if there were any hiccups along the way, Amy was really available to help me, like, why is this happening? What should I do? Who should I contact to smooth it out so the process can keep going from credentialing to contracting? And so for me, that worked best. And especially when I went to credential with Medicare, Amy's program has a step-by-step how to fill out that application. So it was me literally watching the video, pause, fill in, watch the video, pause, fill in the other section. And it you know, it went through. So that was invaluable. And for me, that worked out. And I would say, I think I started the process in maybe the spring of 2023. And by the end of the year, I think I was in with everybody. So that was my journey.
Yeah, I thought I would share just a little bit, thanks Robin, about my journey because it's slightly different. I had received my CNS, got my license, and then went and tried to hire a credentialer to do some of that for me. And I wasn't really getting the result that I wanted. It was just a lot of communication delay and time issues, and maybe it's a little just bit of my type A personality, but I wanted more communication and I wanted to know where I was in the process. So I had a conversation with that credentialer and we sort of parted ways. And I think one of the next few days is when I signed up for Amy's program. I was like, I can't do this alone. So that was in July of last year that I signed up and I started doing all of the credentialing myself. If you can, you know, achieve and earn your CNS and fill out a supervision tracker sheet, then you can definitely credential with insurance companies because there's nothing about it that's like rocket science. It's just a lot of steps, moving parts and pieces. And I think, you know, I started in July and by the end of last year, I was finished with the credentialing process, save for a few stragglers. Like I just received a contract a year later from a company, you know, and so there's always going to be some some wild cards out there with credentialing. And I think that's like a good point to make, is that putting that with somebody else, like they're not going to have more success than you necessarily just because they're like, it's their job. It just doesn't always work the way we want things to with credentialing.
And I can add to that as well. I hired a credentialer before I even joined Amy's program. So I was in motion on a couple of applications because that's all I was going to do at first. I was just going to do, and it was like I had two. I was like, no, just two for me. And so I hired the credentialer to just do those two. Then I started taking Amy's program. I learned so much more that I wish I had known when even from the very starting point where I just had him credentialing me under my NPI 1, which might not mean much to everyone who's listening if you're just learning about what the difference between NPI 1 and NPI 2 is. But like, had I taken Amy's program and carried all of that knowledge through the credentialing process and done it myself, which I ultimately did do the last set of applications myself because I had that confidence and that knowledge, I think that would have been better. And I think also to Melinda's point is that there may be other companies that you have to do this with down the road, right? So like if you have this exquisite knowledge base now and this confidence sort of like established now that you can do this and it's not as awful as you're like making it out to be, you'll be fine. If these companies all merge or there's a new player in the market or you find out something or you get a license in another state or you move, this sort of education doesn't have an expiration to it.
Great. So once you're credentialed, how do you figure out if someone has coverage for their diagnosis?
Okay, so now you're licensed, you're credentialed, and you've got your first client and they're coming to you with their insurance card. So this is the point. I've decided I'm still doing discovery calls. A lot of people get this information either through their EHR or maybe they talk to their client on the phone, but I'm still doing discovery calls. That's the way I'm operating. So I ask the client to bring their card with them to the discovery call. And I usually explain to client that there's two sides of the policy. There's a preventative side of the policy, and there's also a medical side. And we're trying to get visits covered usually on the preventative side, which the preventative policies were instituted with the Affordable Care Act. So most of these major insurance companies, all of them should have some sort of coverage on the Affordable Care Act. Maybe best case scenario would be like Blue Cross Blue Shield, where a lot of times we can get unlimited visits with no copay with a BCBS product, whereas with maybe Cigna would be an example of another one where we may only get like 3 visits covered under the preventative side of the policy. So if I can use that preventative coverage, and it does get a little bit more specific than that, I'm going to use preventative because that will get my client a no copay, no deductible visit. If that's not working out or we've maxed out those benefits, then I switch over to the medical side of the policy. That's where you might get diagnoses like eating disorders, GI conditions, some of the cardiometabolic conditions that aren't covered more on the preventative side of the policy. So usually I can figure that out really, really quickly in the first visit. One resource that Amy does offer is her cheat sheet. So she does have a resource called the cheat sheet. I think it's $50 on your website, Amy. Yeah, and it explains in a lot of detail just the difference between these like preventative and medical coding. So that would explain all of the major carriers and then Medicare as well. So that is what I do in my 15-minute discovery call. But Robin and Carrie, you might have a different process. So I would love if you would share that.
Like you, I do discovery calls, and after a while you start to know what plans cover what. There's a few exceptions with some self-funded plans that are kind of make their own rules up, but for the most part the major carriers behave the same. And so I tell people, this is up to you ultimately to verify your benefits. Now, that's a choice too, that you have the client to verify exactly what their benefits are versus you doing that. But I have them do that, but I tell them generally what is, what to find to expect is covered. Sometimes I'll just verify that I am in network. So at least we got that. But specific benefits, I have them call. There are some nuances, which is really why Amy's program is very helpful, because even some of the major players, if they say they only have 3, if you change a code past 3, or same like with Medicare, past the first 3, you can get unlimited coverage. And clients absolutely love that, to hear that, because they have copays probably for everything else in their life. But if they can come get their nutrition benefits covered, then you've kind of got some trust, and they're willing to keep coming back.
Okay, so now you've seen the client. Can you talk to me a little bit about what can a CNS expect for reimbursement rates when they're taking insurance?
I think that last I checked, Amy, that I think you were saying about 125 was the national average, or has that changed?
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
say about, I always use 100 because I like to be like a straight shooter. Cause like in Connecticut, we are lower. I say average of 100. I like to use that number because I like to light and delight, meaning like a lot of times they're higher than that. So at least that's the average. And then I never feel like I'm selling somebody a bag of shit, because I don't want them to sign up and think that like I'd much rather go lower and then them be pleasantly surprised. But I would say on average, I work with dietitians in every single state that's permissible. It's about 100 to 110. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've also found in my experience where I'm credentialed, there it is much higher.
Correct.
And there's also a difference between your introductory initial consultation and follow-up, the reimbursement, even if they're the same amount of time, they could both be 60 minutes. So those will vary by state. So that's always something to just be aware of, that we can speak broadly, but we don't, for each person's state, you just would have to kind of check and see.
Yeah. I think it might be important to mention that we're not trying to be cagey here either. It is against insurance company policy to announce our rates. So we are just following that here, and giving you some sort of broad strokes of what you might expect. You can always look up the Medicare rates for your area with your zip code. Those rates are public. And I guess I just really wanted to, dispel this myth. I often hear this number that insurance pays $30 an hour. And I think that people might confuse units, which are in 15-minute increments, with hours. But there aren't any insurance-based dietitians, CNSs out there that are making $30 an hour for their sessions. So if you see that, then you're getting some solid misinformation.
I love that.
And I can share that across all of the majors that I am credentialed with, across all of my follow-ups and all of my initial consults, my hourly is around 150 an hour, and that's here in Connecticut. And we'll talk more about like filling the practice and how long it takes, but really my rates have not changed since I credentialed with these companies in December. And I would say in terms of forecasting, I feel very comfortable using $150 an hour when I'm budgeting for the balance of 24 and most of 25.
That's a good point.
Absolutely. I just want to point out that, sometimes we hear a lot of people, think that may not be a high enough rate for them, for what they think. And I will say 150 an hour, with a full caseload is better than nothing an hour with hardly any clients. So, that's a decision that everybody has to make on their own. But I think if you want to have a full practice, and that means different things to different people, how many clients that is, you're going to get that with it being an insurance-based CNS.
Yeah, we definitely hear that. If you're an insurance-based CNS, you can't make a 6-figure salary, and that's not true, right? So thank you for kind of breaking that myth. So, talk to me a little bit about doing your own billing versus hiring a biller.
Okay, so as I mentioned, I had started the insurance journey without Amy, without Robin, and without Melinda before I was ready to do my own billing. So I had hired a credentialer, and I was like, okay, I am going to join Amy's course. I feel like it's very comprehensive. It's very turnkey. It has all the forms. It has literally, I won't be searching around the internet for anything. This is literally what I need. After I made the commitment to launching an insurance-based practice, she has the entire platform essentially delivered to me. I'm in. Okay. But my credentialing came through before I got to go through the modules of Amy's course. So I was like, oh my gosh, I have somebody calling me who's an Aetna patient who wants to see me. What's the easiest thing to do? And the easiest thing to do at that juncture was to call a biller and start with a biller and see what that was all about. And I was and like Amy, I told Amy, she didn't like kick me out of the program because I was using a biller. You know, I told her, I'm not done with the coursework yet. So I can share the experience of using a biller. It was I would say underwhelming. It was underwhelming because here's the thing, even if you have a biller, you have to make the executive decision on what codes to put on that insurance claim. And not only do you have to do that in confidence, you also have to know that that code that you're putting on is from the best or most optimal side of the policy. As Melinda was talking about, there's two sides of the policy, the preventative and the medical side. It is a shame if you're putting it on, if they qualify for the preventative side where they could have no copay, a zillion visits with you, and you could tell that if you had the education, if you had Amy Plano's education, if you had all of that and you left that on the table with that patient or that client, you know, that's a real shame. And let's say you build them under anemia, right? I have a lot of anemia people who come in post chemotherapy. So I would say that again, like with the biller, yes, it does take some friction off of you, but then at the end of the year, at the end of the month, did you leave money on the table because you weren't coding properly? Very different ideas. And I had to learn all of that from scratch. And so now, are there other billers that are out there with all different economics that they can offer you? Some of them offer you like, what is it, like $20 a claim to file the claim for you, and maybe they'll appeal it for you and they'll like watch it for you, they'll watch the life cycle of the bill for you. That's super cool. But again, are they advising you on what codes to put on there? That's the big, I would say, the big difference. And it'll make a difference when you have a full practice. It'll make a difference.
Absolutely. It's kind of like, I tell people when they ask me, is it hard? Is it hard to bill? Because Melinda and I, did it ourselves. And I was like, well, yes and no. Like it's like learning a foreign language, right? When you start to learn French, like you're not fluent in it, right? You might be kind of like stumbling along a little bit. You might make a couple of mistakes, but after a while you can have a conversation. And so billing is like that, and especially through Amy's program where she goes through it step by step. When you were talking about the cheat sheet, I still have that thing up when I bill. It's still there, and also now with integrations with things like Office Ally, Claim MD, things like that are integrated into your EHR, it's very few clicks, right? If and like everyone's generally these preventative codes, it's just a few clicks and it's submitted, and then you can watch the life cycle of it, right? And with Amy's help, how to correct it. And Amy's going to talk about her program a little bit, but I'll say one of the benefits is that in her Facebook group, you can post a claim with the personal information redacted, and Amy will look at it for you and go, oh, that's what you did. Correct that,
Do that. Yeah.
Yeah, just do that. And then it's like, oh, okay, I'll just change that number, that box and whatever. And, then there you go.
I think I might jump in here and just say, we're not trying to candy coat this. Like billing, once you get the hang of it, takes very, very little time. Correcting mistakes might take a little longer. The process can be really slow. And you do have to have sort of like a like committed, like water buffalo mentality that you're just gonna keep on doing something until you get the result that you want. Because insurance, as Amy sometimes says, just operates without any laws, or like, it's just sort of a weird space sometimes. So it does take a certain amount of determination. But the actual process of it is not hard once you get the hang of it.
And I just want to say one quick thing, as well as that, I can't be mad at anybody for having a biller, because when I first started my practice in 2007, I hired a biller, and I had such an unsavory experience that like it was probably my first time when I really went crazy on somebody, because probably first and definitely not the last, but because I was so taken back by, I am of the belief that you hire professionals. It's like hiring an accountant, right? And this was like my first experience with like, the real world isn't fair, right? You hire, into what Carrie was saying, you hire a professional and you anticipate they're going to attend to all of your needs. But the reality is that, that they don't always know what's best. And so that's what I really struggled with. You're paying this person all of your money, and you're putting a high level of trust, and it's like a bad relationship where they keep on letting you down. And so that first relationship ended very poorly. And so, like any smart business owner would do, right? You scramble to find another biller because you're so busy in your practice, which I know you guys are going to talk about next. But I hired another biller who charged me a retainer. And then like 2 months later, she retired. So she had my money. And so the point of this story is that I think what I really realized as an entrepreneur, and what was really eye-opening, and I think you guys have all alluded it, but haven't articulated, is that you really realize how much power you are really giving away. And then not even only that, you really realize how powerful you really are in the process. Because I was like, I cannot believe I was giving away this power. Yes, it is like not always rainbows and unicorns and glitter, but I think as somebody who has done both and has learned by process of not having a biller, like you're also, when your back is against the wall, you will always do what it needs to, whatever you need to do to bring your business forward. And so I am never adverse billers. I just have not personally found one that I feel comfortable recommending, for all of the reasons that you guys just alluded, is that like they just don't know our businesses or our intentions as well as we do. But I want to be very clear, like I party followed in the beginning. And I'm glad that I did, because I'm not adverse to billers. I just don't know any good ones, but yeah.
Great, thank you. So how do you market an insurance-based practice?
So when I started out, and when I was in clinicians incubator and had to sort of source my clients, but I wasn't yet credentialed under insurance because I hadn't finished. It was difficult before, and it was a lot of trying to network with, providers and getting my name out and all these things. And the roadblock I kept running into was the question when people ask me and say, "But do you take insurance?" And of course, it was always no at that time. They're like, "Oh, well, let me know when you do," And so I realized then that I probably wanted to take insurance. So once I did get credentialed, before I had put myself on health profs and got no traffic. If it was a couple phone calls just like that, went like that. "Sorry, I don't take insurance." Once I did, and I could check those boxes in health profs with every plan I was a part of, suddenly traffic picked up. So for me, that was a really good avenue. I looked before this call, I looked at, because I capture that data in my discovery call form, like, where did you find me? And in order, it's first is Google. So I will say, if you can get yourself on Google, listed your business, and if you can solicit reviews, the more reviews you have, the more eyeballs you'll get on that. So the top was Google. The next was health profs, which really worked well for me. The next one was referrals from therapists, mostly. And the last one was the insurance website, their directories. So that's how I did that. I've also networked with therapists. So if I get a client, because I work in the eating disorder space and some people with neurodiversity that have a therapist, I reach out to them and say, hey, can we grab a 15-minute call to discuss our client? And through that, I have received a lot of referrals just because we're putting our faces, we know each other, we've talked, and that's gone really well for me. I'll also say, like what my mom used to say, if you don't ask, you don't get. So I tell clients, hey, if you have anybody that at your work, because you all have the same insurance, let them know that you have a nutritionist. I say that to the therapist I reach out to. I'm like, hi, I've got some slots or something. Happy to take any referrals. So you do have to kind of speak up and like market yourself a little bit, and do those things. But that's been generally how I do that. And one day, Amy Plano, I will get those rack cards and everything out to
if it's not broke, then don't fix it.
Haven't needed them yet, Robin.
Exactly. If it's not broke, don't fix it. That's my motto.
Those mailers will go out someday, I promise. So, that's what worked for me. So, Melinda?
Yeah, I would say my marketing, journey is very similar to yours, Robin. We work in similar spaces. And, like you, I had health profs, which didn't really do so much for me. I do now get a lot of referral partners, I think, through health profs. Like some women's groups have found me through health profs, therapists, like looking on the site. So that's been a really, really helpful source of referrals for me. I try my best to reach out to anyone every single day, be it like a therapist or a doctor or, just someone to make a point of contact every day. I am not on social media. I haven't been on Instagram since I started this whole process. I just kind of had it in my head that I wanted to do it without Instagram and social media, and it's worked really, really well for me. And yeah, I live in a smaller town. I live in Bend, Oregon, so I have the benefit, I think, of like local networking, and I can, drive 5 or 10 minutes here and there, and it's really worked out nicely to meet a lot of my local referral partners, and as well as in like the ED treatment space. So that's where my marketing time goes.
So I will be completely honest, I spend approximately 0 minutes per week marketing, but my practice is full. So I will distinguish between marketing, like in the sense of like going on social media, and or LinkedIn or any of the majors. I differentiate that between networking with providers. So I will specifically, they almost always come through the directory. But as soon as I see them and I have their doctor's name, right, I reach back out. We are taking care of, we are seeing a mutual patient and all of that. If you don't do that right now, I will tell you, Amy's program has all of that, those referral sheets in there that you can just literally copy, put your logo on, and out the door. And so I don't necessarily call that marketing, but I guess some people would call that marketing. And that has enabled me within the oncology community here in Fairfield County to become, in a very short period of time, like I said, it is September. I just credentialed last December. I have both of the top breast oncs in Fairfield County. I am there. They put my card in their survivorship folders. That was very fast. That was very fast, right? So, and that is 100% because the inpatient dietitians here in Connecticut at the big cancer centers cannot see outpatient people. They do not have the bandwidth for it. So I am not taking advantage or capitalizing. I am putting myself into a place where there is a need for it, right? These are patients who need to use their benefits. I'm here to serve. I have a good reputation with them. I've done good work for their patients, and that's how the practice has been growing. I don't know if I'll ever make a reel ever again. I will be honest with you. I don't know. I don't know if because I honestly, I don't know if I need to, because we'll talk a little bit about what each one of us has in terms of business goals and filling our practice, because that means all different things to different people. But my practice right now is filled. And like I said, I have been completely transparent about what I did to fill it. And you could look at my Instagram account and be like, she's not kidding. She doesn't post anything.
I think there's one little unsung hero too, is certain directories, not the insurance ones, but things like, since I'm an eating disorder provider, I think Melinda's on the same one, like the National Alliance for Eating Disorders. They send us referrals, right? Or people find us there. Carrie, you have some for cancer survivorship that you're listed in, right? And getting onto anything that is your specialty or something like that, I would say get onto all of them, because even if you don't directly receive a referral, the algorithm picks up, and especially if you have a Google listing, it pushes you higher because your name is out there in so many different lists. So that's a free and easy one. There are some that you do have to pay for, like the Hayes one I'm on for ASDA. That was a paid one, but everything else has been free, and it just boosted my visibility.
Great advice. Okay, so before we start talking about Amy's program, I want to wrap up and talking a little about time. So I think a lot of the CNSs are interested how long it took you to fill your practice, which Carrie was just talking about. Do you feel like you can still maintain a work-life balance? And kind of how much time do you spend on admin work because of the insurance part of your practice?
Yeah, I currently try to see a minimum of 20 patients a week. That's always my goal. Usually I have to overbook just a little bit to meet that. I would say I was fully credentialed in November, December last year. I started Amy's program in July. So maybe like 5-6 months later, I was on with all of the major carriers. And then from there on, I think by February or March this year, I felt like I was full enough. I had a 2-day-a-week contractor job. And by March, April, I was ready to leave that job and go what I consider full-time. So I see currently clients 4 days a week. On Wednesdays, I have an admin day and spend that day doing billing and all my catch up. And then sometimes I see clients on Saturday mornings and kind of like do the rest of my weekly wrap up on Saturday till about noon. So it's pretty full time. But I think 20 sessions a week is like my max for my client load with eating disorders. There's a lot of care coordination and a few extra steps that goes into that patient population.
So for me, I'm sorry, do you want to go ahead?
No, go ahead.
For me, right now, I'm an adjunct at UB, and I feel like the right number for me is the maximum is 10 appointments a week. So like Melinda said, I typically book or target 10 appointments a week. And then it usually shakes out to be like 7 or 8 because there are cancellations. And I would reflect that I haven't noticed a higher level of cancellations within the insurance side of the practice versus when I was doing concierge private pay side of the practice. I would say it's about the same types of reasons why people are canceling. With that level of business, so let's say 7 appointments a week, the way my expense structure works out is that basically my business goes in the black after the first week of practice, right? So I think everybody has a different way of thinking about their profitability and what metrics feel right for them. And I have a monthly view. Like I know there's all the recurring monthly expenses, but like typically by the end of that first week, they're all covered, whether it was 7 or 10 appointments, just to give some more color around the compensation side. Could I see more than 10 people? Yes. Could I book more people? Yes. I'm at a point now where I'm getting getting at least 1 new person in per week. So with 1 new person in per week, yeah, I could definitely probably go higher, but to retain the work-life balance and including the admin, I carve out a day for admin. Some days, most weeks it's Friday. Sometimes it's Thursday, usually depends on the yoga schedule or my 9-year-old schedule. So, but it is usually I take one full day, not the full 8-hour day, but I do one day where I kind of have a podcast on and I'm doing some stuff around the office related to the insurance side of the practice.
So similar to Melinda, I target for about 20, 25. And let me just clarify, that's 50, 55-minute appointments. If you see 30-minute appointments, then you have to probably double that number. But that's the length of time for my follow-ups. And then my initials are an hour and a half. So those weeks could be slightly less. I do 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday. Friday is admin day. I would say once I was credentialed on all the plans, that was the end of last year and beginning of this year, probably by late spring, June-ish, I think I was comfortably at 20. I'm happy to go to 24 or something too, just because that works for my finances to have that many. And I think it's easy to use that admin day too now to catch up and to do billing. And we should say that, what do we say, an hour and a half, Melinda? Maybe if and that was if you're not caught up. And, a lot of the times too, with all the integrations, I submit them at the end of the day. So Friday, I really don't have to, unless there's a few straggler things. And that's just kind of notes, care coordination and things like that. So that's what mine looks like. And I like, if it isn't much on a Friday, I kind of have a 3-day weekend. So.
Wonderful. Well, now let's shift over a little bit and talk about Amy's program.
Awesome. Okay. I know that one of the questions too was, I'm going to answer some of the questions I know that we had chatted about, but one was like, how long have I been working with CNSs versus dietitians? And actually, I don't think people know this, but actually like my second coaching client, I just used to do one-on-ones before I went to a group coaching program, was actually a CNS. So literally from the very beginning of my career as a business coach in the reimbursement space, I have been working with CNSs. My previous real job, one of my 50 jobs while I was building my practice was I worked in academia. So I was like the director of a master's program at a local university for a master's program. So we had a lot of CNSs within that master's program and context as well. And I taught a nutritional counseling class. So I've been working with CNSs from the very beginning. And personally, in all due respect, I actually don't see, to me, there's no delineation. Aside from the licensure rules in terms in which states CNSs can credential in, I don't see any difference personally. I don't treat anybody differently. The process isn't any different necessarily, aside from a handful of nuances. So it is a pretty homogeneous process with the addition of, the licensure statutes. Would you guys say the same thing? Because I know that you guys are more well-versed on that side, but I don't see did you guys see a major difference in between what I say to dietitians will do versus what you guys do? It's kind of the same, right? I mean, there's not really.
I think since we're all on this sort of private practice, solo private practice, playing field, I think it just kind of makes everybody more the same.
Yeah,
I
never felt I don't know. I don't get it. But so everybody goes through the same process independent of the state that you're in. I am very mindful and aware of not necessarily the different scopes in terms of a restriction standpoint. I am more aware of actually the additions and the values that CNSs bring to this field globally as nutrition. And so I'm a classically trained dietitian. I do weight loss. And so my breath is kind of pretty standardized. While I work with a lot of amazing CNSs who do a ton of functional testing, and operate in a different space. And for me, it doesn't take any extra bandwidth because I've been integrating programs and packages with the insurance piece from the very beginning of my practice. And so my background is really in sports performance. And so we did a ton of metabolism testing and DEXA scans and personalized meal plans. And so from my perspective, from a program standpoint, the functional labs and the additional testing that some functional CNSs may do, those to me are a no-brainer in terms of how to integrate them. And we have a lot of different, in addition to the reimbursement piece of the coaching program, it is really important to me that the individual needs of the different types of dietitians are met. And so we have, every month, we have a different master class on a topic that the group has decided. And so last month we did a refresh where I walk the whole, our whole group through, if you want to integrate programs and packages, what does that look like? And I find that our field as a whole does very well with like a workbook. So anytime I can simplify the message and be like, do this, do that, do this, and make it into a framework. So I know there is that big concern with functional practitioners, no matter who they are, that they are always afraid that they're not going to get compensated for their time. And I always want to be very clear that unless you're willing to work for free, you don't have to, nor should you. So just because you're insurance-based does not mean in any shape or form that we compromise the way in which you practice. There are so many different ways in which we can build in additional sources of revenue. So if somebody comes to me and they say, my max is, 15 patients per week, but this is my revenue goal, we can talk about additional ways in which to create additional sources of revenue. So, so I want to be very clear. I know there is this fear or this myth that for some reason, insurance-based dietitians provide sub-quality care, and they don't do it in a way that feels right to them. And if anybody knows me at all, I don't do anything that's not consistent with my core values. So I don't think, CNSs or dietitians who function within that space have to compromise. So I want to make that very clear that it doesn't change the quality of the care you provide. We do have to be thoughtful and intentional in terms of how we pair those together. And then in terms of my program, so I offer, it's so weird. I hate talking about my program. I know that's what I'm here to do, but it just feels so weird. But anyway, so I have a 6-month coaching program that takes dietitians from the CNSs from the very beginning of their journey all the way to the end, and then everything in between. And so I am a very type A, former college instructor. And so I have built the structure of my program as if I was teaching college students, in the sense that I try to leave no stone unturned. And so it's a 6-month coaching program where I literally give you everything I have and then some. So the key piece to always remember, and it makes me very different than other coaches. I don't think it makes me better, but it's very important to qualify this piece that I run a private practice. And so anything we are changing in my practice, I always am a sharer. I give you anything we're doing. And so yes, we have this coaching program that has the fundamentals, but anytime we add or update anything I have done, you can have. And so I run a multi-6-figure group practice, and you guys have access to everything and anything you want from that. So the coaching program is essentially self-paced, but I do like to give you a curriculum in which to work through. And so I'm a weirdo. You get lots of emails from me kind of checking in, and those are me. And I love it when you guys respond to me so I know where you're at. But I really have tried to take the group coaching platform and really put as much of me into it as I humanly possibly can. So we have a very active Facebook page, which I am in pretty much 19 hours out of the day. I should have better boundaries, but I don't really love putting boundaries around something that I enjoy too much. Like, I'm not supposed to check it on Sunday. I'm always in there on Sundays. So, so I never want you guys to get stuck, because I know what it's like to feel stuck and to feel hopeless. And like, to me, that's very disempowering. And so like, I will do anything I possibly can to make sure that doesn't happen. So we have the self-paced coaching program. Then we have the Lies Facebook page, and then we actually have weekly live calls, which are literally the best part of my day. They're supposed to be 60 minutes. They're more like 90 minutes to 2 hours, because I just really enjoy, like, I really love my job. I don't know what to say. Like, I got nothing better to do. This is there's no other thing I'd rather been doing than hanging out with people talking about business and insurance. So we have the modules, which give you everything. So all the forms, all my scripts. We have weekly office hours, and we try to, I'm a very strangely intentional person. Like, nothing is arbitrary. So every week we try to switch the office hours so they're on a different time in a different day. So if somebody is a mom and they have to run to after school stuff, we do some during the day. We do some in the evenings. We do some on Saturdays. So we're constantly trying to do things. In addition to that, we also, I just love business. And so we have a lot of master classes. So like this week we have this, I'm really excited for this one. We have like one on AI charting this Saturday. And we always record those. So if you're not able to make those, a week from that, we have one on marketing. The following month, we have one on telehealth and operating among state levels. So what does that look like from a licensure standpoint? How do we bill for that? So because a lot of the information in the world of insurance is constantly in flux to some extent, not to the point to like freak out. I spend a lot of my day like, is this still legit? Is that legit? I don't like this. Let me redo that. And so I really want to make sure that the information is contemporary, because there is a lot of information. So it's a 6-month coaching program. And we have a special discount code, which is CNS 10. That will give all CNSs who want to come and hang out with the program, they'll give them 10% off, and it gives them 10% off any of the options. So if they pay in full, which I think is like 40, I don't even know the prices, $42.27, they can do a 6-month payment plan or a 12-month payment plan. The coupon code is good for all of that. The other 3 things that I've started doing new since you guys have joined is I know a lot of people, at least, do coaching programs, and they have this apprehension, and they, because it is a big financial investment that I can almost guarantee you that you will make it back. Like, as we just heard today, in a very short period of time. I feel like, I feel inferior to you guys, because you guys are just like when I think about myself, like 6 months after I started, you guys are like rock stars. But so 3 things I do differently now. I have a 24-hour free trial. I know that people think that's crazy, but I offer that once I get your application, and we'll talk about where to put your application in. So if you really think that I'm going to sell you a bag of shit, and that these 3 rock stars that are joining us tonight are really good actors, I want you to see what you're buying before, before you purchase. So I do a 24-hour now free trial. I do a 30-day back money back guarantee. So if you join and you think it's pretty horrible and it's not anything that we talked about tonight, I'm happy to give you your money back. And now we have a really amazing list of ambassadors as well that can be really helpful in terms of asking questions. So It is still a application process. And it will always be an application process for the program. It is really important to me that the people that join the program and that we let into the program are equally as awesome as the 3 people that were on this call tonight. And it is really important to me that the people that pursue insurance, they don't pursue it as an afterthought. They pursue it in the interest of making their services accessible. I have found when people think that their shit don't stink or that they're high and mighty, that we are just not a good fit, and insurance is not a good fit for them. And so that's why I do make it an insurance-based process, because I now do a full-on discovery call that I wasn't doing before, because I want to make sure I am a good fit for you and you are a good fit for the program. And I don't, I probably take less people than I take more people, but that's out of, I know I say this all the time, I don't want to sell somebody a bag of shit. And so I feel like it's really important for me to steer people away that might be a better fit for cash. And I still love them. I just don't want to take somebody's money who I know, like, I can tell you I work with hundreds of dietitians in my coaching program, and there is not one that I wouldn't bring to Sunday dinner. There's not one that I wouldn't bring, to, Christmas Eve, with my big Paisano Italian family. Like, I feel like we all are cut from the same cloth, and it like elevates our field. So it's like, for me, it's like, I want people that have big hearts that want to serve. I want people that want to advocate for our profession, for insurance, because I really think that that predicts long-term sustainability. So I know that's weird, and probably business coaches don't do that, but I don't know. It's very important for me that people have a genuine interest in serving. And the last thing I want to say, and I had to keep my hands on my hands under my butt while you guys were talking about marketing, is that these 3 rock star women, the reason why their practices are full, and I know I've already swore like way too much, is that they are really good fucking humans, and they have a really good service that they offer. And so it is not by accident. It is not by luck. It is not just because they accept insurance. It is because they are good fucking humans, and they deliver on their services. They make CNSs proud, and they are good at their craft. It's not by luck. You know what I mean? So yes, they are lucky that they don't have to market, but they did all the hard work to get where they were before. So now it's easy. And like, the insurance piece just makes it easier. So I just wanted to be very clear with that I can't, my coaching program can teach you insurance, but I can't make you a good fucking human. And so that's why we need to make sure that that's there before you start. And yeah, and then the easiest way to put in an application, it's super easy. It's just www.reimbursementdietitian.com. You'll see my big mug, and then you can just go to the coaching page. Take some time and read through everything. I'm a lady of many words. And I just want you to know what you're signing up for. And I don't think I could have done it better. And now I know when I want to retire who I'm hiring to take over Reimbursement Dietitian. So I feel like I'm in good hands now. As Carrie probably knows, in the financial world, you guys are my succession plan. You just don't know it yet. So thank you.
I'll jump in with one final thought.
Yeah.
It was the question that I asked Robin, because I knew Robin was doing the program. I used Robin's discount code when I signed up for the program. My question to Robin was, how long till I recoup this investment? Because I was sold that it was for me. I was told that it was for me. This was the lift. Amy was the tip of the spear. There was really no question that if I was this was a turnkey program. But how long until I make back my investment? And Robin was like very clear. She was like, well, I mean, I'm not even on with everybody at this point, but like, I'm already, like, you were like already 90% of the way there. And it was like, like what, 2 months, something like that.
Yeah, yeah, probably like that. Yeah.
So the person, I can't say specific economics, but that patient that found me before I even completed Amy's course, because I was in the insurance directory, she is still with me from December. I've seen her, I think we're up to appointment 17, but it's not, she hasn't covered the entire cost of Amy's program.
But she's pretty close.
She's
Yeah.
very close to it. That's one person who I did a really good job with, who was the trailhead for the 5-star restaurant here in Fairfield County. That's it. The just all kind of came together. I know Amy's going to say something about how great we all are, but like really, like sine qua non. It would not have happened without sine qua plano. It would not have happened without Amy.
Yeah, thank you. But it was mostly, it was like 5% me, 95% you guys. So, but it's all good. You know what I mean? And like, but I think there's just, yeah, I think it's amazing. And, yeah, I am blown away by this conversation. I was coming like just to like hang out, but I am blown away. I feel better because of this conversation, which I love, which you guys know very rarely happens, but I love this.
Either Amy Smith or Amy Plano want to talk about how many CEs.
I was just
I'm gonna let Amy Smith take that piece.
On Amy's program, it's considered category 5, which is professional development. So you can earn 10 CEs from the program. And so those can be accounted for on your tracker. So make sure you account for those if you're already signed up, and that you can earn those if you have not already. Any other final thoughts? All of Amy's information is going to be housed with this website, or with this webinar, sorry, so you'll be able to find it easily. The code will be there. And I think the ladies have made themselves available if people have questions specifically about their states. So we have Oregon and New York, and Robin, I'm sorry, I forget where you were at.
Florida and Washington.
Florida, Connecticut,
Minnesota, Illinois,
Maryland.
Maryland, yeah.
We got Maryland.
But I would say, I mean, just personally, like if you're on the fence, if you maybe like, you know, like Melinda and I, when we're watching Amy's social media forever and stalking her, and should we do it? Should you do it? Should you not? Talk to one of us, set an appointment with Amy. You know, it's worth it. And I know, like I said, the investment, I happened to do the payment plan because I wasn't sure, you know, how fast I would do it. And I wound up being able to make the money to make the payments well ahead of time. And you get out of it what you put into it. Right. So, you know, definitely if you know you're kind of person and you're a self-starter and, you know, it's something you want. I think when I put on my application for you, Amy, I said, I used to be a chef. No one's going to outwork me. So, you know, I was like, you got to be determined and everything. So it's not, you know, because I see some people like in some of our social media groups that we have, you know, kind of like, why isn't my business going? Why isn't that? And any choice you make, you have to put the work in. But Amy's program makes it a lot easier to get going.
Awesome. Thanks so much for being here with us, Amy.
Oh my God, thank you for having me. I'm so excited. And yeah, well, let me know anything I can do to help. You guys know I'm here, okay?
Awesome. Thank you.
Bye, guys. Thank you.